I want you to picture two houses sitting side by side in the exact same neighborhood. The rent is exactly the same, the weather is the same, and the commute to the city is exactly the same. The first house belongs to someone taking home about $100,000 a year. If you walk up to their porch, you will usually find a couple of delivery bags sitting there. Inside, the lights are on, the massive television is playing in the background, but the person sitting on the couch is stressed. They are refreshing their banking app, watching the numbers drop, and feeling a tight knot in their stomach. They make six figures, but they are exactly two missed paychecks away from a complete financial disaster. Now look at the second house. The person living there makes $60,000 a year. That is barely more than half of their neighbor. Walk inside their house and you smell actual food cooking on the stove. Their living room is clean, their television is a normal size, and when they check their bank account, they smile. They have a full year of expenses sitting safely in a high-yield savings account, and they are steadily buying investments every single month. Same street, same economy. The person making almost half the money has 10 times the financial peace. My experience sitting with everyday earners and watching how money actually flows has taught me one very simple truth. This is not a story about how much money you make. This is a story about the hidden traps that drain your money before you even realize it is gone. In 2026, the world has changed. The old rules of buying things just do not work anymore. The prices of everything went up a few years ago, and we kept waiting for them to come back down, but they didn't. This is our new reality. Psychologists actually have a name for the smartest way to live right now. They call it intentional caution. It simply means paying attention to the math behind what you buy instead of just handing over your credit card because you are tired. Because right now, massive companies are relying on the fact that you are too tired to do the math. Let me show you exactly how this works with the very first thing that is no longer worth your money and how it perfectly highlights a rule we call the convenience tax. Picture this. It is a Tuesday night. You just worked an 8-hour shift. You sat in traffic for 45 minutes and you finally walk through your front door. You are exhausted. The absolute last thing you want to do is chop onions and stand over a hot stove. So you sit on the couch, pull out your phone, and open a food delivery app. You find a burger and fries from a local place. The menu says it costs $15. You click order, feeling like you deserve a treat for working so hard. But let's look at the actual math happening on your screen. That $15 burger actually costs $11 if you walked into the restaurant. The app inflated the base price just to show it to you. Then the app adds a $3.99 delivery fee, then a $2.5 service fee, then taxes. Finally, you add a $5 tip for the driver. Because you are a good person, your $11 burger just cost you $28. That is an 80% markup. You just paid a massive tax purely for the convenience of not driving 10 minutes down the road. If you do this just 2 times a week, you are spending over $2,900 a year on food delivery. But the crazy part is, almost $1,500 of that is just fees and markups. You are working hundreds of hours at your job every year just to pay invisible fees to an app. This is the ultimate wealth killer for the modern worker. The replacement for this is not starving, and it is not forcing yourself to cook a complex meal when you are tired. The replacement is simple batch cooking on a Sunday for exactly 1 hour, or setting a strict rule that if you want restaurant food, you use the restaurant's own website and pick it up yourself. You keep the food, but you instantly get back $1,500 a year to put into your investments. This brings us to the second trap, which happens when you actually do go to the grocery store. It is the trap of pre-packaged and pre-chopped convenience foods. When you walk into the produce section, you will see a whole pineapple sitting there for $3. Right next to it, sitting in a clear plastic cup, is a small handful of chopped pineapple. The price tag on the cup says $6. We buy the cup. Why? Because of something called the two-income trap exhaustion. When both adults in a household are working full-time jobs, time feels more valuable than money. We convince ourselves that paying double the price for someone else to slice a fruit is a smart trade because it saves us 3 minutes in the kitchen. But when you zoom out and look at the math, it is brutal. You are paying a 300% premium for a plastic cup and 3 minutes of knife work. If someone offered you a job paying $60 an hour just to chop fruit, you would take it instantly. But by buying the pre-chopped fruit, you are happily paying the grocery store that exact same high rate. This does not just happen with fruit. It happens with pre-marinated chicken, individually wrapped cheese bites, and little snack packs for kids. The grocery store takes a very cheap item, cuts it into pieces, wraps it in plastic, and triples the price. The smartest money replacement here is reclaiming just 15 minutes of your weekend. You buy the whole foods, chop them while listening to music or a podcast, and put them in your own containers. You instantly cut your grocery bill by a massive margin without actually eating any less food. But while we are leaking hundreds of dollars a month on sliced fruit and cold delivery food, there is a much bigger machine quietly draining our accounts in the background, sitting right inside our houses and parked outside in our driveways. That machine parked outside is one of the biggest wealth destroyers of our entire lifetime. Let's look closely at the new car financing trap. 3 months ago, a man walked into a clean, bright car dealership. He just wanted a safe, reliable vehicle to get to his office. The salesman greeted him with a big smile, offered him a coffee, and sat him down at a desk. The salesman did not ask how much the man could afford to pay for the total price of the car. Instead, he asked one very specific question: what monthly payment are you looking for? That single question is how the trap is set. The average price of a new car right now has crossed $50,000. To make that massive number sound normal, banks and dealerships stretch the loan out to 6 or even 7 years. And with interest rates sitting around 7.5%, the math becomes an absolute nightmare. The second you sign the paperwork and drive that shiny new car off the lot, it loses 20% of its value. It is instantly worth $40,000. But the bank does not care what the car is worth today. The bank is charging you interest on the full $50,000 you borrowed. So for the next several years, you are paying a massive premium for an item that is getting cheaper and older every single day. By the time you finally pay the car off in 7 years, you will have paid over $10,000 in pure interest alone, and the car will barely be worth a fraction of what you bought it for. This is the exact reason why everyday earners feel like they can never get ahead. They are sinking a huge portion of their monthly paycheck into a heavy piece of metal that actively loses money. The smartest replacement for this trap is completely ignoring the smell of a new car. The financially secure neighbor from our first story does something totally different. They look for a certified pre-owned car that is exactly 3 years old. The first owner already took the massive 20% loss in value. The smart buyer pays cash if possible, or takes out a very short loan of no more than 36 months. They buy a car that already lost its fake premium value, keeping thousands of dollars of interest safely in their own pocket. And while that car is sitting in the driveway losing value, you walk inside your house and head straight to the kitchen, where an entirely different trap is waiting for you. We all remember the refrigerators and washing machines from the 1990s. They were loud, they were ugly, and they lasted for 25 years without a single problem. Now you walk into a home appliance store and you see a refrigerator with a massive glowing touchscreen on the door. It connects to your home internet. It has a camera inside so you can look at your milk from your phone. It costs $3,000. We buy it because we think technology makes our lives better. But what we are actually buying is a machine with a strict expiration date. This is called planned obsolescence. Appliance companies realize that building a machine that lasts 20 years is terrible for their business. So they put cheap computer motherboards inside of environments that have massive temperature changes and constant moisture. Within 3 to 4 years, the touchscreen goes black. The Wi-Fi stops connecting. You call a repair person and they tell you that replacing the tiny computer board will cost $800. For most people, paying $800 to fix a 4-year-old fridge feels like a waste, so they just throw it away and buy a brand new one. We are treating massive home appliances like disposable cell phones. The smartest money replacement here is simple. You buy commercial-grade, dumb appliances. You look for the basic models from reliable brands that have physical knobs and heavy metal buttons. You do not want your washing machine to connect to the internet. You just want it to wash your clothes. By choosing the boring, mechanical option, you save $1,000 up front, and you save yourself from having to buy the exact same machine again in 4 years. But the kitchen is not the only place where companies are trying to put you on a permanent payment plan. If you look at your phone right now, there is a quiet, invisible leak draining your bank account while you sleep. It is the micro-subscription bleed. 10 years ago, if you wanted a movie, you bought the disc and you owned it forever. If you wanted computer software, you bought the disc and installed it. Today, companies have realized that selling you something once is a bad deal for them. They want to sell you access to your own life, charging you a small fee every single month until the end of time. You sign up for a $10 streaming service to watch one popular show. You promise yourself you will cancel it when the show ends. Then you download a fitness app for $15 a month because you feel motivated on a Sunday morning. Then you agree to a $12 premium shipping membership to get a package delivered faster. These numbers look tiny by themselves. $10 here, $12 there. But when researchers ask the average person how much they spend on subscriptions each month, most people guess around $40. When those same researchers actually look at the bank statements, the real number is almost always over $133. You are bleeding. Over $1,500 a year for apps you do not open, movies you do not watch, and digital gym memberships you do not use. This is the death of ownership. You own nothing, but you pay for everything. The replacement rule for this is incredibly easy, and it instantly plugs the hole in your bank account. It is called the one-in, one-out rule. If you want to watch a new show on a specific streaming service, you must cancel a different service first. You only pay for the exact things you are actively using this month. You rotate them. You take back your control, and you stop letting massive tech companies quietly siphon money out of your paycheck. This constant renting of our digital lives makes us feel a little empty inside, so we try to fix that empty feeling by buying physical things things to fill up our rooms, which actually creates an entirely new trap perfectly designed to make our homes look rich while keeping our bank accounts completely broke. There is a very famous psychological pattern that companies use against us every single day. It is called the Diderot effect. Hundreds of years ago, a man named Dennis Diderot received a beautiful, expensive red robe as a gift. He loved the robe, but when he sat down at his desk wearing it, he realized his desk looked old and ugly next to his beautiful new clothing. So he bought a new desk, but then his rug looked terrible next to the new desk. So he bought a new rug. He kept buying things to match the aesthetic of the first item until he completely ran out of money. In 2026, the exact same thing happens right inside your kitchen cabinets and your bedroom closets. We call it the aesthetic home organization trap. You scroll through social media and see a perfectly organized pantry. Everything is sitting inside matching, clear plastic bins with beautiful custom labels. It looks peaceful. It looks like the person living there has their entire life under control. So you go to a home goods store and spend $400 on matching acrylic boxes, glass jars, and woven baskets. But if you look closely at what is actually happening, the math is completely backwards. You are spending hundreds of dollars to buy pretty boxes just to store items that you have not touched in 3 years. You are buying expensive containers to organize your own clutter. The Diderot effect convinced you that buying one aesthetic, organizational tool would make your whole house feel peaceful, but it just made you poorer while keeping the exact same amount of junk inside your home. The smartest replacement here is completely free. It is called aggressive decluttering. The financially stable neighbor does not buy $400 worth of plastic bins. They simply throw away or donate the things they do not use. They use the original boxes the food came in. They understand that real wealth is having empty space and a full bank account instead of having a house packed full of highly organized aesthetic clutter. And this exact same psychological trap does not just happen in the kitchen. It is actively draining your money every time you get dressed in the morning. Over the last few years, clothing became incredibly cheap. You can go online right now and buy a brand new sweater for $15. It looks exactly like the expensive designer version. This is the fast fashion trap. We buy 10 different shirts because they are cheap and we want to follow every new micro trend that pops up on our phones. But we have to look at the math of something called cost per wear. If you buy that $15 sweater, it is made of cheap synthetic plastic fibers. After you wash it exactly 2 times, it loses its shape, the color fades, and the threads start coming apart. You throw it at the back of your closet and never wear it again. You wore it twice. Your cost per wear is $7.5 every time you put it on. Now imagine you buy one high-quality, heavy cotton sweater for $80. It feels expensive. You wear it once a week for the entire year because it looks great and holds its shape perfectly. You wore it 50 times. Your cost per wear is only $1.6. The cheap $15 sweater is actually 5 times more expensive than the high-quality sweater. Fast fashion is a tax on the poor. It forces you to constantly buy new clothes because the old ones deteriorate instantly. The smartest replacement is what younger generations are starting to call under consumption core. You build a capsule wardrobe. You buy a few high-quality items in neutral colors that last for years. You stop treating your clothing like paper towels that you use once and throw away. You end up looking much better, and you keep hundreds of dollars in your pocket every single season. This massive shift away from paying for fake aesthetics brings us to the most frequent place we spend our money, the grocery store aisles. For decades, we were trained to trust the big-name brands. We believed the bright red cereal box or the famous blue soup can meant higher quality. But in 2026, the math has completely changed. When inflation hit, the big-name brands did something called shrinkflation. They kept the price exactly the same, but they made the box slightly thinner. They put more air in the bag of chips. They reduced the liquid in the bottle by 2 ounces. They quietly gave you less food while charging you the exact same amount of money. Recent consumer data shows that 69% of shoppers have finally woken up to this trap. They realize that paying $6 for a name brand box of cereal is a mathematical failure. The replacement is a permanent shift to private label, which most people just call store brands. In almost every major grocery store, the store brand version of oats, rice, beans, and frozen vegetables is made in the exact same manufacturing plant as the expensive name brand. The ingredients are identical. The only difference is the cardboard box it comes in. When you buy the name brand, you are literally just paying for their expensive television commercials. By aggressively switching to store brands for your basic pantry items, you instantly drop your grocery bill by 20–30% without actually sacrificing a single ounce of food quality. We start realizing that paying a premium for a colorful cardboard box at the grocery store is a massive waste of money. But while we are busy saving 50 cents on cereal, massive retail stores and tech companies are using a much more advanced psychological trick to steal thousands of dollars from us right at the checkout counter, tapping into our deepest fears and our absolute worst habit of simply getting bored. Look at the smartphone sitting in your hand right now. It connects to the internet instantly. It takes incredibly clear photos, photos, and it holds every single contact you have ever made. By any logical standard, it is a technological miracle. But if you have owned it for more than 2 years, you probably look at it and feel a little bit of disappointment. You open a website and see an advertisement for the brand new model. The new model has a slightly better contrast on the screen. It has a tiny, marginally improved camera lens on the back. It comes in a slightly darker shade of titanium. Your current phone works perfectly, but suddenly it feels old. This is the boredom tech upgrade, and it is quietly robbing everyday earners of their future wealth. We have been trained by massive marketing budgets to confuse boredom with mechanical failure. When we feel bored looking at our screen, we convince ourselves that we need an upgrade to be more productive or to take better pictures of our kids. But replacing a perfectly functional item simply because a newer version exists is wealth destruction disguised as progress. Let's look at the brutal math behind this habit. The average American replaces their $1,000 phone every 2 to 3 years. They usually finance it through their phone carrier, burying the cost in their monthly bill so they do not feel the pain of spending $1,000 at once. Over a 30-year working career, this constant cycle of upgrading costs tens of thousands of dollars. But the real cost is the lost opportunity. If you kept your phone for 5 years instead of 2 and invested that monthly payment into a basic index fund, that single decision equals between $30,000 and $50,000 in compound interest by the time you retire. You are literally trading $50,000 of your future freedom for a slightly different colored piece of glass today. The financially stable neighbor from our first story operates on a very strict rule to defeat this. They clearly define what functional failure actually means. A phone remains a functional tool until it genuinely fails to serve its purpose. A desire for novelty is not a failure. The release of a new model is not a failure. Actual mechanical breakdown, or the complete inability to hold a battery charge for a full workday, is a failure. Everything else is just a company convincing you to solve a problem that you do not actually have. But let's say your device actually does reach true functional failure. You do the math, you save the cash, and you walk into an electronics store to buy a replacement. You pick out a new laptop or a television, and you walk up to the checkout counter. The cashier scans your item, looks at their screen, and asks you a question carefully, designed to instantly trigger your anxiety. They ask if you want to add a 2-year extended warranty to protect your purchase for just $50. This is the fear tax, and it is one of the most brilliant scams in modern retail. Massive stores make you imagine dropping your brand new computer on the sidewalk the second you walk out the front door. We buy the warranty because $50 feels like a small price to pay for peace of mind. But if you look at the financial documents of these massive electronics retailers, you will see something shocking. Those extended warranties carry an almost 90% profit margin. They are pure profit for the store. Why? Because the mathematical probability of a solid-state electronic device breaking on its own during that specific 2-year window is incredibly low, and even if it does break, the warranty contracts are filled with hidden loopholes. If you spill water on it, the warranty is voided. If you drop it at the wrong angle, it is considered accidental damage and is not covered. You are paying a premium price for a safety net full of massive holes. The smartest money replacement here is completely rejecting the fear tax and doing something called self-insuring. Instead of giving the store $50 for a piece of paper, you transfer that exact same $50 into your own high-yield savings account. You do this every time you buy a small electronic device, a vacuum, or a blender. Over a few years, you build a massive cash buffer. If one of your devices actually does break, you use your own cash pool to fix or replace it without asking a store manager for permission. If none of your devices break, you keep 100% of your money, you become your own insurance company, and you keep all the profits for yourself. By recognizing these psychological traps at the checkout counter, we stop letting companies drain our pockets $20 or $50 at a time. But these small victories are just the training ground for the massive financial decisions that will ultimately decide if you get to retire early and enjoy your life, or if you will be forced to work under a boss until you are 75 years old. And the biggest decision of your entire life usually starts with a white picket fence and a massive 30-year mortgage. For generations, we were told that buying the biggest house the bank would approve us for was the ultimate American dream. We look at a massive 5-bedroom house with a perfectly manicured lawn and a 3-car garage, and we think we have finally made it. We call it our forever home. But in 2026, the math behind this dream has turned into a total nightmare. This is the over-leveraged housing trap, and it is the main reason why 94% of recent young homebuyers are reporting massive buyer's remorse. When you sit across from a mortgage lender, they look at your income and tell you the absolute maximum amount you are allowed to borrow. If you make $100,000, they might approve you for a $500,000 house. You sign the papers, excited to fill up all those empty rooms, but the bank does not care about your lifestyle. They do not care about your groceries, your car payment, or your retirement savings. They only care that you can barely make the minimum payment every month. When you buy a house at the absolute absolute top of your budget, you become what financial experts call house poor. You are living inside a massive wooden box, but you have zero cash left to actually live your life, and the mortgage payment is just the baseline. The real wealth destroyers are the hidden costs of unused square footage, are paying thousands of dollars a year in property taxes, heating, cooling, and maintenance for guest bedrooms that get used exactly 2 times a year. You are working 50 hours a week just to heat empty space. The smartest money replacement for this is completely rejecting the bank's maximum approval number. You buy purely functional square footage. You buy a smaller home that fits your actual daily life, keeping your housing costs well below 30% of your take-home pay. Or, depending on your local market, you choose to rent a highly affordable apartment and ruthlessly invest the difference into the market. By keeping your housing costs low, you instantly free up thousands of dollars every single month to buy your actual freedom. But once you have all this extra money sitting in your bank account from skipping the food delivery apps, keeping your old phone, and buying a reasonable home, you run into the final and most dangerous trap of all. You decide to invest your money. You sit down with a professional financial advisor wearing a nice suit. They look at your savings, smile, and offer to manage all of your money for a simple 1% fee. 1% sounds incredibly tiny. You agree to it because you think paying a professional is the safest way to grow your wealth. But let's look at the brutal math of high-fee mutual funds and expensive advisors. If you invest $500 a month for 30 years and the stock market grows at an average of 8%, you will have about $700,000. But if your advisor is taking exactly 1% of your total account every single year, they are not just taking 1% of your profits. They are taking 1% of your entire life savings over 30 years. That tiny 1% fee steals nearly 30% of your total compound interest. You hand over hundreds of thousands of dollars to a guy in a suit just for picking a few mutual funds for you. The replacement for this is the ultimate wealth-building secret of the modern era. You fire the expensive advisor, and you buy low-cost S&P 500 index funds. Funds like VU or FISAX hold the 500 largest companies in the United States. They operate automatically because there is no expensive human manager. The fee is usually around 0.03%. You set up an automatic transfer every time you get paid, you buy the index fund, and you never look at it again. You keep almost 100% of your compound interest, letting your money multiply quietly in the background for decades. This brings us all the way back to the 2 neighbors we talked about at the very beginning. The neighbor making $100,000 a year fell into every single trap. They financed a $50,000 car. They bought a massive house at the top of their budget. They upgraded their phone every time they felt bored. They paid an 80% markup for cold delivery food because they were too tired from working to pay for all their debt. They look rich on the outside, but they are drowning on the inside. The neighbor making $60,000 a year chose the math of intentional caution. They bought a certified pre-owned car with cash. They live in a highly functional, affordable space. They batch cook their meals, they buy basic store brands, and they ruthlessly funnel all of their extra cash into low-cost index funds. They look completely average on the outside, but their bank account is bulletproof. In 2026, the system is perfectly designed to separate you from your money. Every advertisement, every app, and every store layout is engineered to make you spend. But the moment you understand the brutal math behind these 12 traps, you take your power back. You stop buying things to look wealthy, and you start using your money to actually become wealthy.